Hello, I'm glad you can make it to Modern Real Estate Principles and Practices in Ohio. And this is the textbook that we'll be using for this class. Welcome to the class. And I just want to start out by talking a little bit about what do you know about real estate and becoming a real estate agent. And then we'll get into the chapter. Looking through the Help Wanted ads right now, and I'm seeing ads that say Portfolio Manager for Residential Real Estate Client Relationship Manager, Listing and Sales Consultant, Home Sales Consultant, Associate Real Estate Listing Agent, Real Estate Buyer's Agent, Consultative Real Estate Sales Agent, Business Development Coordinator, Entry-Level Real Estate Professional, Customer Service and Sales Professional, Associate Real Estate Sales and Marketing Consultant, Home Buyer Consultant, Sales Representative, and Real Estate Professional, Customer Service and Sales Coordinator, Sales and Marketing Manager, Marketing Associate, Residential Real Estate Retail Sales Associate, and a Business Development Specialist. These are all other names for what would you say? A real estate agent. And that's part of the reason for taking the class right now. This is one of the requirements that you'll need to be able to take and sit for the real estate license exam. So when you're taking this class, Real Estate Principles, we're going to be going through everything that's kind of the vocabulary for everything that you'll need to know for real estate principles. With the chapter textbook, Modern Real Estate Principles, Real Estate Practice in Ohio, ninth edition, you will need the ninth edition textbook to be able to keep up with everything in the class. Unfortunately, the 8th edition is set up a little differently, and the chapters don't line up. So the ninth edition is what you'll have to use for this class. And when you open up the textbook, I'd like you to take a minute to do that right now. Open up the textbook, take a look at it, and you'll see how it's organized. When you look at the first piece is there's unit features. It tells you how the textbook tells you how the textbook is organized. But open up to chapter 1, Introduction to the Real Estate Business, and that's what we'll talk about tonight. You'll see how the chapter is organized, and then on page 13 is a unit quiz. Every student will do the unit quiz, and that will be online. This is not something that you get points for doing. This is what's required, is to do the unit quiz for each chapter. And when you study for the midterm and the final, all of the unit quizzes are what I pull from for the midterm and for the final. It's not a cumulative test. It's just the first midterm will be chapters 1 through 13. The final will be chapters 14 through 23. And they are made up of these multiple choice true-false questions from the end of each chapter. So the quizzes are required. As you go through the textbook, go toward the back of the textbook where you'll see it's kind of dark on the pages, and you'll see there's a section for real estate math problems. Because real estate involves some math, it's not heavy-duty math, lots of multiplication and subtraction and addition. I want you to be able to do these real estate math problems, and you'll do the real estate practice problems. There are 50 of them, and every week you'll go ahead and you'll just go ahead and type this up and send it in as an additional paper. This will not be online, but you're going to do the math review. Just do 5 questions a week for the first 10 weeks. So the first week you'll do questions 1 through 5. The second week you'll do 6 through 10. Third week you'll do 11 through 15. So just keep going at it that way, because I want you to get some exposure to the real estate math. By the way, all of the answers are in the textbook for the real estate math, so that's why you're just going to type 1 through 5 and put the answers down and show me what you're doing. Again, this is practice for you so that you'll feel more comfortable with the math, because there will be a little bit of math on the real estate exam at the state level. Not from this class, but from the state level. When you keep going through the textbook, there's a sample math exam, and in 1 and 2, there's sample exams 1 and 2. These will be great for you for when you're practicing to take the real estate test. Every time more and more you can take these tests, the more and more you'll get comfortable with the vocabulary. Keep going through the textbook, and page 591 is all of the vocabulary words that we'll be covering and talking about. That's basically the glossary. And then going back in the textbook to page 618 is the answer key. Guess what? All of the answers to all of the little chapter quizzes are here. The idea is you'll do the quizzes online. Try to do the quizzes the best you can just after you've read the chapter. Do the best you can. They're not graded, but you have to do them to get credit for doing them. And when it comes time to study for the midterm, open your textbook up, circle all the right answers so that you're studying the right answers for the midterm and then for the final. And again, the answer key is at the back of the textbook. So we're not making this hard on you. It's more busy work than anything. But you'll need to do all of this just to get all the vocabulary, learn it, familiarize yourself with it. It's said that if you do all these things 3 times, you're exposed to it 3 times, you listen to me talk about it, you read about it, you answer questions about it, there's a good chance it'll sink in your memory, and that's what I'm going to be trying to do with the class this semester. So with that, I'm ready to start, and we will start with Chapter 1, and we'll talk about the introduction to real estate and where we're going with this. And so, again, what I'm hoping you're going to be able to do is become more familiar with the world around you. As you drive around now, as you go places, look at the houses, look at the real estate. This is kind of how I got started in the business. I used to love to look at houses, and I would go literally drive around when I was getting my driver's license. I grew up in Springdale, Ohio, and I drive around through Glendale and Wyoming and look at the houses. I love doing that. So again, appreciate the real estate and see what's going on. We'll talk a little bit about commercial real estate, and you'll learn different types of real estate as well with learning vocabulary. And hopefully through the class, all the way through, you're going to have a better appreciation of the real estate in the world around us. So real estate transactions are taking place everywhere all the time. And the services of many highly trained individuals are required. And that's why you're going to learn this stuff. From attorneys to title insurance company agents, from surveyors to tax experts. All these people are, in addition to the buyers and sellers, depend on the skills and knowledge of a licensed real estate professional. So the state of Ohio has this Ohio Division of Real Estate, and we'll talk a lot about that in Chapter 23 of the textbook. But the Division of Real Estate oversees the whole licensing process. Every state has a division. They do this whole thing throughout every state. But we're going to learn about what happens in Ohio. So, introduction to real estate business. Our learning objectives are going to be list and describe the various careers available in the real estate industry, discuss the role of primary professional organizations, including the services and designations they offer the real estate practitioner, and the ethical codes that they establish. So, real estate. It's a business of many specializations. And one of the things I want you to do at the very end of the class, you're going to write a 1 or 2 page paper, basically what you're going to do with real estate when you grow up. What are you going to be when you grow up with real estate? What did you learn in this class? Where do you think you want to go with real estate? Are you just going to do it because you want to be an investor? Or are you doing it because you actually want to get licensed? If you want to get licensed, where do you want to go with that license? What will you be required? Will you have to continue education? Will you take more classes outside of the university or the college environment? How do you take them? What's it cost to take them? How many years? For example, if you want to become an appraiser, you've got a bunch of hours, 3,000 hours that you've got to do working under somebody, and about 16 separate real estate courses you have to take. So you're going to learn more about each one of those things that are required. How much money would it cost? How long would it take? And then ultimately, what's your earning potential in that field of real estate that you're endeavoring to do? So throughout the textbook and throughout this chapter, we're going to learn more about what you can do with this real estate license. And I'll be one of the first people to say, just because you learn real estate does not mean you have to get licensed. And to be involved in real estate, you don't necessarily have to have a license. So those are also some things we'll talk about through the class while you're taking it. So again, real estate has many specializations. You can do brokerage, you can do appraisal, you can do property management, and you can do financing. And along with that, you can do subdivision development, home inspection, counseling, and real estate education. Lots of opportunities in the real estate world. There are many professional organizations. Whatever career you're in, you should find out what the professional organizations are that represent that career. So if you're going to be doing machining, what are the machine organizations? Where can you learn the trade? How do you belong to an organization? What's available in your area? A lot of these organizations also have professional designations, and they offer education, and they offer scholarships, and many of them have local chapters where they have meetings every month. If you want to grow in your career, whatever your career is, learn about what the organizations are that are local, that you can join, that you can participate in, and become educated and become a true professional. In real estate, the professional organizations that we have, the primary one is the National Association of Realtors. Every realtor who is actually licensed through a realtor agent and belongs to Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors is also going to belong to the Ohio Association of Realtors and also ultimately the NAR, the National Association of Realtors. By paying dues to Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors, they pay up into the Ohio and into the National, so you're automatically a member. The National Association of Realtors has been around for a long time, and that's their primary goal, is to push the real estate education. Within the National Association of Realtors, they have many little specialty areas in their own like little groups. So they have the Council of Real Estate, which is the CRE, Counselors of Real Estate. We actually have some counselors of real estate in Cincinnati, but this is hard to do, and there's only 5 or 6 of them that are local in Cincinnati. I know most of them because over the years I've met them through professional organizations in real estate. There's also something called Commercial Investment Real Estate Institute. That organization promotes the CCIM designation. CCIM is what is the ultimate goal of like having a master's in commercial real estate. You're a certified commercial investment member if you're a CCIM. There are many courses involved in becoming a CCIM. You take the classes, you ultimately take a final test, and you submit a portfolio. The best commercial real estate agents in Cincinnati are CCIMs. They took it to that next level. They wanted to become better and learn about the business. The Institute of Real Estate Management. This is something I belonged to many years ago, and I became a CPM, Certified Property Manager. The Institute of Real Estate Management, their goal is to promote property management in apartment residential, office and commercial, and as well as shopping center management. They have little different divisions, and when you go to get a CPM, Certified Property Manager designation, you can specialize. So that's the Institute of Real Estate Management. There's also the Realtors Land Institute, the RLI, and you're going to hear there's a lot more little things that you can learn about and get involved in. The Society of Industrial and Office Realtors, SIOR. Again, this is another designation that commercial agents are getting. Again, it's exactly what it is, industrial and office realtors. They want to learn the lingo in the industrial world. And then there's also the Women's Council of Realtors. We actually have chapter locally in Cincinnati of the WCR, so there's a lot of opportunity to get involved in that if you become a licensed agent. Professional ethics. Every field we belong to these days has some kind of ethical requirement. The Board of Realtors requires you to take an ethics class every 3, actually not the Board of Realtors, but the Ohio State requires you to take an ethics class every 3 years. It's a 3-hour class, and as long as you're licensed, you're required to take that ethics class. It's a similar class year after year after year after year, but there are always changes in ethics. You learn about case studies when you take the class. You see what's going on in the real world and how to make the right, proper decisions, how to be representing your client properly and be not challenged in what you're doing ethically and what you're thinking. So we have a high degree of ethics in the real estate business, and you have to be able to prove that you're worth it. So ethics refers to a system of moral principles, rules, and standards of conduct. It establishes standards for integrity and competence in dealing with consumers of an industry service. You are going to be representing your clients as a fiduciary, and you owe the highest degree of ethics and care for all of your clients. We're also going to define a code of conduct for relations within the industry among its professionals. We have ethical guidelines of how we treat each other. If you belong to the Board of Realtors and you have a beef against another agent, you go and sit before an ethics committee at the Board of Realtors. They strongly urge you to do that. That's part of belonging to the Board of Realtors, that all your complaints are heard at the board level where they will resolve those disputes. And then at this point in time, I always want to ask the question about, do you know the difference between something that's ethical versus something that's legal? What's the difference? Ethical versus legal. Think about that for a second. The difference between ethical versus legal. Well, the primary difference is if you do something illegal, you go to jail. If you do something unethical, you don't necessarily go to jail. It's just wrong. And in Cincinnati, you can get a reputation, the wrong reputation, for doing things that are unethical, and it's not something you want to do. When you do things that are unethical and you're in the Cincinnati area doing real estate, you'll find that Cincinnati becomes a very small community and you're known by how you carry on. So we definitely want to have a high degree of ethics in what we're doing. Again, so there's a code of ethics, there's the National Association Realtors Code of Ethics, and then there's the NAREB Code of Ethics. All of these are talking about real estate. Types of real property. When we talk about real estate, it breaks down into the type of real estate. What are you going to be dealing in? And there's areas of specialty that you can do. We have residential, we have commercial, we have mixed use, we have agricultural, we have industrial, and we have special purpose real estate. When we talk about residential, more than anything, we're talking about single family or duplex type units that are spread out. When we talk about commercial, we can be talking about office buildings, we can talk about shopping centers, but we can also talk about apartment buildings. They are more for investors and they're run more as a commercial endeavor. Mixed use obviously is mixed because it might have special shopping, residential, office, retail, all kinds of things mixed together in a mixed use environment. Industrial is exactly what you think it is. It's industrial, but it can be low industrial or just more warehousing versus the heavy industrial, which is more manufacturing. Agricultural land is exactly that. It's used for cultivation, for growing crops. In our area, if you can farm at a minimum of 10 acres of land, you also get something called a CAUV credit, Cultural Agricultural Use Valuation Credit, which means you almost have to pay nothing in real estate taxes by going through the local county and filing your CAUV paperwork. It requires the property owner as well as the farmer to do this paperwork. And then ultimately, there's special purpose real estate. What is special purpose real estate? Well, it's schools, it's churches, it's buildings that are built for specific use. They can be changed, but more than anything, they're built for specific use, and therefore they would be called special purpose real estate. Homeownership. We take this very much for granted in the United States, that people can own a home and they can get a mortgage on that home. It's not that way in other parts of the world. But ultimately, our thing of ownership in the United States represents financial stability. And this is why people want to be able to own their own home. It's a way to take that cost of living. No matter where you are, you're going to have a cost of housing. You can pay it to the apartment and watch it go down the drain and never see anything for it, or you can put it into your own house or condo where you're going to gain equity. And that's the financial stability why people want to own homes, because when they're making that investment every month, they're owning a piece of it. Eventually, they're building their equity. People own homes for investment purposes. Ultimately, it's your own personal investment, but you can become a landlord, or you can own many homes and rent them out. And then also there's pride, security, and a sense of belonging. When you live in a neighborhood, you have pride in how you take care of your house and you want to belong. Types of housing. There's single family detached, which most of you are familiar with. Apartment building, many of you are familiar with. Condominiums. I remember being a young teenager in Cincinnati when condominiums started developing in our market. And we thought it was kind of weird that why would you want to live in a condo? It's just a small apartment, and then you got to pay a monthly fee. Well, we've learned over time people want to live in condos because you get the ownership results of owning a unit. You get the tax write-off, you get the principal, you get the equity build-up, the payments, and things like that. But with a condo, you don't have to care for much more than just the interior. You have a condominium association that basically takes care of the lawn, the exterior of the building. So it's more of a carefree way of living where you're not having to spend time to maintain your place. Co-ops, a cooperative, we don't have them in the same market, but they are much like condominiums, except you don't actually own the piece of real estate like you do a condo. In a co-op, you own a stock certificate. you are part of an investment group that owns the entire building, and then you have a certificate and basically a long-term lease that lets you live in the unit that you're in. Planned unit developments, many of those we're seeing around now they can be multi-use, mixed-use developments. When we see shopping centers go up that are large, they're going on old industrial sites. Typically, they're coming in as a planned unit development. And then again, they're mixed use very often, but then the next piece we go to is a mixed use development where you have residential and commercial uses mixed together. Converted use property. Wow, look at some of the Kmart stores. They're not Kmarts anymore. Now they're becoming office buildings or medical buildings. There's a lot of different things. Schools, no longer schools. Now they're condos or apartments. So there's a lot of different things we can do with old buildings and do converted uses. Industrial buildings aren't even all industrial anymore. They can become office buildings, or they can become retail buildings, or vice versa. And then ultimately a factory-built housing. Don't confuse factory-built housing with mobile home housing. Factory-built housing is housing that literally is put together in a factory, but it's higher standards. Then it's shipped to site and assembled on site. Very often, factory-built housing can be a $300,000 or $400,000 home, and people confuse it because they think it's mobile home, but it's anything but. It's just factory-built and then assembled on site. Again, built to higher standard, better tolerances. Typically, they're much more energy efficient than the homes that are built on site today. The real estate market, very much governed by something called supply and demand. How many of you have had economics? Supply and demand is what drives economics. When supply and demand are balanced, the prices are stable in our real estate environment. When supply increases, prices go down. When demand increases, prices go up. It's this way in everything we're buying and doing in our marketplace, and it's especially impactful in the real estate world. So the other thing you need to remember about supply and demand in real estate is unique. I'm an identical twin. There really are two of me. But when you see us, we look very similar, we sound similar, but we're totally unique. We're different people. With real estate, you can have a whole row of houses that were all built by the same builder. They can actually have the same floor plan. They can have the same finishes. But they are unique in the fact that each one sits on a definitely separate piece of real estate. The one might be on the end, one might be in the middle, one's on farther closer to a busy street, different next to the apartment building or next to a shopping center. So real estate itself is very unique. Each individual lot makes it unique. Real estate is also immobile. This is not one of those Texas take the house and move it somewhere kind of thing, but the land itself is immobile. Yes, we can build the house and we can pick up the house or the building and we can move it off the land to another place, but the land itself is immobile. We used to say that it was also indestructible. And for the most part, real estate is indestructible. However, if you have a sinkhole, you're going to think twice about, do you want to live there, or how do you want to live there, or how do you want to resolve this so that you don't continue to have the sinkhole. Obviously, if you have a house that's on a sinkhole and the house sinks, it's going to be hard to rebuild again unless you do a lot of work underneath to make sure it's shored up. So land, for the most part, is indestructible, but things can happen. Factors that affect supply and demand. Think about our marketplace here in Cincinnati, and how we survived the Depression and what the Cincinnati Industrial Valley, the Mill Creek Valley, was many years ago. Lots of that has changed. We aren't the manufacturing environment we used to be. So things that affect our supply would be the labor force, the construction and material costs. We also have government controls and monetary policy. Listen a little harder about what's going on with the Federal Reserve. We have a new person that's coming in soon. How will that change the practice of the Federal Reserve? The Federal Reserve is charged with a lot of things to do with our monetary supply and trying to keep the money level stream so we don't have high inflation and runaway growth. So those are the monetary supply and the controls that the government has over it. Factors that affect demand. Population. Obviously, as the population grows and there's less and less houses, we have a supply and demand issue. Demographics, younger versus older versus wealthy versus poor, that also affects demand in the type of housing we're going to see. Employment and wage levels. As long as we have decent employment, we have high demand and growth in our markets. But when that stops, the opposite can happen. And that's it for our real estate, the first chapter. Enjoy it, and we'll look forward to having you come back. Thanks so much.